Alright boys, welcome back to BBR Week 7. This time we're facing my draft league rival, Owen OGalbina, who you can check out in the top right hand corner. Owen is currently 3-3, and we're currently 4-2. We're looking to secure one more win, because while we are probably in the playoffs because we have a very good differential at 4-2, there is still definitely a chance that we could miss it with 4 wins, so we want the extra win in one of these next 2 weeks at least to secure playoffs guaranteed at 5 wins. So Owen is unfortunately in our way, so we're going to have to make the most of this situation and take him down this week. Owen's a very good player, so this is going to be tough. Owen is someone who I hold pretty highly in the Wi-Fi community. I think him and I are very similarly skilled, one of the reasons why I think that we're rivals in Draft League, if you will, and he has a very good team. His team consists of Iron Valiant, Chi-Yu, Glamora, Swampert, Metagross, Talonflame, Decidueye, Porygon Z, and Hariyama. So there are a couple Pokemon on both sides that do very well in this matchup, and the first one that I want to highlight that does the best in the matchup overall, it doesn't matter which side you look at it, is Chi-Yu. I don't know how this is our 6th Elite Fire type in 7 weeks, because there are maybe 8 usable Fire types in all of Paldea decks, and we've pulled almost every single one. We have Chi-Yu, and our Chi-Yu resist, I'm looking up and down right now, as you might be, is non-existent. Our water type is Quillfish, and Quillfish is 55 HP and 60 defense or whatever it is not gonna cut it. Chi-Yu, unfortunately, is gonna claim a couple KOs any way we slice it. My job here in this matchup is gonna be to mitigate how many KOs it can get and find a way to offensively pressure it, because if we try to defensively pressure it, we're gonna lose this game. Past that, on our side, Latios does extremely well. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later, but Latios can be ran a ton of different ways in this matchup, and we could get really creative with it, or we could be basic and run something like Scarf or Specs and just kind of be a normal Latios set. There's not really an incorrect Latios set here, in my opinion. I think there are so many different ways to utilize it, and I'm very excited to do so, but a Pokemon that does probably just as well as Latios is going to be Valiant. We have 2 steel types, but Bullet Punch doesn't do as much as you would think to Iron Valiant unless we're banded, and being banded Scizor in this matchup is kind of a death wish, because it invites in Chi-Yu for free, and then he gets a KO, guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed. And then Skarmory can check it, but we're going to have to get pretty creative if we do want Skarmory to be our check. And then past that, it's just an elite speed tier, outspeeds everything not named Weavile, and gets vacuum weight for Weavile, so Weavile is kind of pointless in that sense. It's just a very tough Pokemon for us to deal with. Those are the only 2 Pokemon, in my opinion, on Owen's side that I think he guaranteed brings. I think the other Pokemon, to be honest, the only Pokemon that I don't really see any merit for in this matchup is going to be Decidueye. He could bring it because of Andy Shocks, of course, but I think that he would opt more for a Spadef Swampert than some sort of a Decidueye. Could he be like AV Decidueye? Sure, but it lets in Weavile for free, and he probably does not want that. Other than that, though, I think the other 8 Pokemon all have very good viability and very good usability in this matchup. Glamora, there's a ton of different sets you could be. Rock Polish Meteor Beam if you don't respect my Scizor, and you know that you can always go into the Chi-Yu on that. Or you could just be a lead set. I don't have the best removal. It's only Scizor, and a lot of my game plans revolve around hazard stacks, so knowing that, you could take advantage of me for sure and be some sort of a lead hazard stacking Glamora. You could also be Specs. Specs is pretty difficult for me to switch into, but I do have Annihilate, which kind of mitigates that, and I have Andy Shocks, which doesn't really make you want to lock a move necessarily. It's kind of difficult to lock a move. So maybe Life Orb, if anything. I don't really see Specs, I guess. Swampert, I mean, what is there to say, man? If he comes, he's going to be like a Spadef variant. Not going to be Rindo in this matchup. I think I don't have any grass coverage on my entire team except for Comfey, so Swampert's just good. It's fat, and it can take hits and dish out pretty decent damage in this matchup. Probably just like Rocks, Flip Turn, Roar, filler move. Metagross is weird because it does good, but I have Skarmory, which really doesn't give it any leeway. A Rock Polish, a weakness policy, or whatever, agility weakness policy set could be pretty scary if he plays it right, or he could be something like Heavy Slam, Bullet Punch, Psychic Fang, Stealth Rock, and that honestly does very, very well. He could throw Knockoff on there, be AV for my Latios. He could be Covert Cloak so he doesn't get the Luster Perch but Death Drop. Metagross does really well, and I'd be a little shocked to not see it. Talonflame does pretty good. He might bring it just specifically so he has another pivot, not Chi-Yu, into the Scizor. And I could honestly, truthfully see his top 6 Pokemon being the 6 that he brings for that situation. On top of that, Talonflame just has a really good speed tier in this matchup, and he could even be something like Swords Dance and really give me a hard time. The Decidueye, like I said, I don't really see it coming, but it might come if he's like that scared of Andy Shocks, but I don't think he really should be. Porygon Z is very strong, but I do have Annihilate, so I don't really see you bringing Porygon because I don't think you want to bring it unless it's choiced in this matchup, and it's really hard to be choiced here. And then Hariyama, the Only reason Hariyama comes is if you are super worried that your team cannot deal with Weavile with the Pokemon that you have. You could be a thick fat Hariyama and completely invalidate Weavile, but if you bring that, then I also have Annihilate, which completely invalidates you. I have Latios to come in and offensively pressure. Sure, you can knock off, but I do some pretty serious damage. It's hard to bring Hariyama here in general, but if you do bring it specifically for the Weavile, I would completely understand. So if I had to pick a 6 that Owen brings, I think it's just top 6, and I think maybe he could throw on Hariyama if he's that scared of Weavile, or maybe he could throw on PZ, but top 6 is kind of what I'm thinking. As for the team that we are bringing, shout out as always for Obo for helping me test this and helping me get this to a good place, because I was not confident in this build at all, but through testing with Obo, I think I've got to a place where I really enjoy the team that we have. And the first Pokemon, like I said, it does the best in the matchup. It's going to be Latios. I'm going to be a little lame here and just be a standard Specs set. I think Specs does really well. We can force a lot of switches. If we force the Metagross in, we can flip turn, go into another Pokemon pretty easily. Shadow Ball is pretty free into this team if he doesn't bring Porygon, Luster Purge if he doesn't bring Metagross, and Draco is pretty much just a free click because of the fact that Iron Valiant's his favorite. He probably isn't going to want to hard switch that in. So I think Latios does very well with choice specs. I needed a breaker with this specific team that I'm bringing, and I think Latios does the job pretty well. We're going to be a pretty lame EV spread here, just enough speed to outspeed the Chi-Yu, max special attack, rest in HP, but I assure you, even though we have a lame EV spread, this Pokemon is extremely important here. We can drop Dracos for free for some uncomfortable switches, and yeah, we'll let the Chi-Yu in. And that's bad after we lock Draco, but we can Draco twice. We can get a KO and get some big damage on the Chi-Yu at -2 potentially. So we have to play this Lati pretty nice early game. We have to flip turn and get some good momentum early. But I like getting this Pokemon in early and doing some big damage. Our next Pokemon, I think I have an addiction and I don't know how to beat it. But why beat it if it's not broke? We've got Big Man, the OVERQWIL. We'll double dance again. So I had trouble. I've said this the last 2 weeks. I've had trouble finding a win con, something I want to work towards in the in game with this team. And I was looking up and down Owen's team, and I was like, that's weird. He doesn't have a single Pokemon that resists OVERQWIL's dual stabs. So we're going for Hazard Stack into OVERQWIL's dual stabs. We don't really need Swords Dance, but we didn't really need another move. It was almost Aqua Jet to help pick up some KOs on some Pokemon that might live and be a little bit tricky. But we're Agility. Agility we can get off pretty easily. We are pretty bulky, and the Citrus Berry allows us to take a hit and then take that Citrus Berry and then live a hit from the Iron Valiant, specifically Vacuum Wave. So that's why we're random Citrus. I feel very weird bringing Citrus. I don't really bring Citrus. This might be the first time I brought it this generation. But I do think that the merit is there to live that Iron Valiant Vacuum Wave for sure. And then we obviously have the Intimidate, so setting up on physical attackers is a whole lot easier. I did play around with like Air Balloon, but I think the way that Swampert's going to be played, it's going to be played in a position to where it's used a lot early game, so we don't really find an opportunity to set up on it. But anyway, we're Crunch, Gunk Shot, you guys know the drill, it's Big Man. And we do actually have some specific EVs. We can outspeed the Valiant, creeping the Latios at +1. We can live a Specs Valiant Moonblast. That was a calc that was a little difficult for me to find, I guess, in mocks, like how bulky to make this OVERQWIL. That's what I decided on, and we put the rest into Attack Atom. And basically, we've just got to find a situation in which we can get an Agility off of Big Man. We got to keep priority in mind, Gale Wings from Talonflame, Bullet Punch from Metagross, and Vacuum Wave from that Valiant. But we have to find a position to where we can get in a position to win with Big Man in the end. Our next Pokemon is going to be our guaranteed lead. Went through a lot of workshopping here, but we got Annihilate, Taunt, Stealth Rock, Rage Fist, and Drain Punch. Like I said, I do expect a potential lead Glamora, but if not Glamora, I expect either Metagross or Swampert. I don't really see another lead for you. If you lead Talonflame, we're in a tough spot, but this is specifically for one of those other 3 Pokemon that I listed. We taunt them, we catch them off guard. I don't think he'd expect a taunt Annihilate. Then we get our Rocks up because Rocks are invaluable into him because he only has Defog Talonflame, in which he would defog away his own hazards, which whatever, I guess, at that point. Rage Fist and Drain Punch does enough damage. Pyappa allows us to live anything from the Metagross, even if he's not offensive. That way we can actually get the taunt off and not be punished if he does decide to not go for the Stealth Rocks. We can outspeed the Glamora, creeping a 24 speed Compe. We live a Chi-Yu, Specs, Modest Fire Blast if he does decide to lead that. I mean, I'll probably still switch out because he could definitely overheat. I forgot to change the defense EVs after I added the Pyappa berry because originally we were leftovers, but without a Pyappa, we live a Metagross, Adamant, Psychic Fangs, which is pretty cool. And then we put the rest into Attack Adamant. This is a very good lead into pretty much anything that's not Valiant, which would be, Iron Valiant lead would be crazy from Owen, but we have some pivots into that I'll talk about a little bit later. But other than that, in Talonflame, we should be a pretty good lead into most things. And then we'll probably pivot out on the Chi-Yu. Our next Pokemon is going to be Andy Shocks. We're going to be a little bit Fizdef here. This is going to be like a fake check to the Talonflame. Our defense allows us to live 2 Flare Blitz from that Talonflame. We have enough speed to outspeed the Chi-Yu. We're booster speed to be able to revenge a potential Scarf Chi-Yu, even though I do think he will be specs in this matchup. And then we went the rest into Special Attack. This is our initial pivot into Talonflame, which is a little bit uncomfortable, but if we want to preserve the booster speed, we can if we find a different avenue. But like if he leads Talonflame, we're going hard into Andy Shocks. We're probably clicking Metal Sound, and we're going to get some big damage on the Swampert to soften it up for the big man in game. Spikes are cool. They're not needed, but they're cool. Helps get chip on Valiant and helps punish switches, which is obviously awesome. And then dual stabs is just fantastic in this matchup. I'm not allowed to say about Andy Shocks other than it's a little, I'm going to have to play him a little uncomfortable based on the mocks and be kind of aggressive with his pivoting into that Talonflame. But we should be able to manage. For our last 2 Pokemon, we're going to run through them real quick. We've got OVERQWIL, sorry, little man, we got Little Man, the little version. Quillfish, AV, Aqua Jet, Flip Turn, Liquidation, Barb Barrage. It's just our Chi-Yu check. It doesn't do a very good job, but it can pretend to be so. And then lastly, we got a Spadef Skarmory. We're going to be AV. We're going to take 2 close combats from the Valiant, rest into Spadef. This is just our Valiant check. Brave Bird, Iron Head to hit the Valiant. Depending on the damage amount, Brave Bird does great. Iron Head can pick it off at like 67, I think the calc is. Rock Tomb prevents the Talonflame from setting up in our face if we do see it's a Swords Dance variant. And Drill Run allows us to super effectively hit the Glamora as well as the Metagross. And that is going to be the team. I'm sorry I'm rushing through this end here. I got to jump in this game, guys. The whole point of this game, whole point of this team is to get OVERQWIL in a position to agility to win in the in-game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out Owen and all of the other BBR coaches out down below, and be sure to check out the match tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching. And for now, guys, this has been John Jr. signing off. Very well with choice specs. I needed a breaker with this specific team that I'm bringing. I think Latios does the job just fine. And I think Latios does the job pretty well.